Hi, this is Dr. Dan Ratner. Today we are going to look at an absolutely crucial part of building your emotions column that I recently pinpointed in one of the consultation videos for Crushing Doubt: the need to view your emotions column as a judgment-free zone. You'll hear about why it is so important to recognize that each and every one of your emotional themes makes all the sense in the world, is essential to your recovery, and must be fully accepted by you without reservation. I'll help you identify subtle forms of judgment and the types of issues in which they tend to emerge as well. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and we'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of my seminars or purchase any of my mind-body guides, also known as the PDFs, at www.crushingdoubt.org. Now, without further ado, here is my exploration into the emotions column as a judgment-free zone. In one of my soon-to-be-aired podcast consultations, as we went through the emotions column, something dawned on me, a thing that seems to happen routinely as I come to understand new ways of understanding and utilizing the framework I have laid out with the columns work. In this case, we were dealing with the emotions column, and I was helping the woman with whom I was working to get even more razor sharp in the specifics of her emotional themes. This alone was allowing for a big breakthrough. But as we worked, I came to see that there were hidden patches of judgment she had towards herself for these themes, and I could see how this judgment was interfering with her ability to use the themes as well as she might have. Now, what problems might you run into if you're judging your themes? When judgment is active with our themes, it obscures our ability to see the themes as clearly in the first place. Judgment also reduces the power of our themes to be used well, as we don't feel the full truth of each theme when it is diminished by judgment. You might dismiss a theme as being active altogether because some part of you doesn't think it is all right. Judgment also undermines the strength of your emotions column interventions because your conviction about the importance of the emotions is reduced, as is your ability to truly be in your own corner. The emotions column is at base a system that helps you be more empathic to yourself by making sense of your emotional world and its various components. But how can you be empathic to yourself if you're judging yourself for what you feel? Essentially, judgment short-circuits the entire emotions column system, whether it is doing so on a grand scale or in certain areas. You must work to recognize when this is happening and find ways to counter it, which are the next two topics I will cover here today. How do you recognize if there is judgment in the picture? The first place to look for judgment, in a more vague sense, is in whether the emotions column work is feeling good in your thoughts about you. Sometimes it won't feel good with respect to the world or your experience, but it should not make you feel worse about you. If it isn't feeling good in your relationship with yourself, the chances are astronomically high that you are judging some part of your emotional world. As is always the case in my system, we start out broad and then get specific. If you've taken that first step of identifying the emotions column as the primary one in which to work on a symptom, the next step is to find the broad theme in which to work. One way to locate judgment is simply in exploring if you have judgment about that topic towards other people. If you do, you're going to have it towards yourself in an even larger degree. For example, if the broad theme is self-esteem, you might question whether or not you are critical of people when they dwell on themselves, or when they get stuck in a rut about whether or not they like themselves, or find people irritating when they don't feel good about themselves. This is pretty natural, which is all the more reason we have to learn to like ourselves. If we don't, who will? Another example, just to keep making this more concrete. If you are deeply critical of yourself when you make mistakes and the theme is regret, well, you are not going to have an easy time being non-judgmental of yourself when mistakes come up. Self-criticism can often come in the details, though, as well. So look for vague bad feelings as a sign of judgment, and then look at the broad themes to see if you are critical in that area. After that, you can look at the specifics. The key is to be straight with yourself. A tricky thing to do because self-criticism can sometimes warp our thinking. But you have to level with yourself and give a truly fair assessment of whether or not you are self-critical in that area. And you have to watch for getting self-critical about being self-critical on top of it all. Ironically, to get better in the emotions column, you have to stay logical and not rooted in your feelings in certain ways. Locating judgment is one of those areas. Once you locate it, you can then begin to dismantle it, which is where you can bring your feelings back into the picture. But until you have judgment out of the way, you might end up using your emotions against yourself. It really isn't that hard to locate judgment generally once you are thinking in this way, but it can hide itself in the specifics. One of the main places you'll need to look for judgment is in feeling bad about any aspect of your life. I have found over time that feeling depressed about aspects of your life is often a veiled self-criticism. What do I mean by this? If you are feeling depressed about your relationship, for example, you are likely to be judging it or you. Only an idiot would be with a person like this. Or, this is what I always do, I make bad choices. Or, this is the best I could do because I am so limited by... insert problem here. Depression is known in psychology circles as anger turned inward. Well, this is exactly what I mean. I'm not suggesting that we turn anger outward and blast the world externally. This isn't channeled aggression and will only make you feel worse. But it is very important that you not turn anger on yourself in any way either. Suicidal ideation is the extreme form of this, but deep self-criticism is only one rung below that. Your emotions column is supposed to be a place where you can work safely and comfortably. What this takes is a complete removal of judgment about how your emotional world works. It works how it works, and you don't even need to evaluate it at all as such, let alone judge it harshly. Now, I can anticipate the next question. What does it look like to have a judgment-free zone? How do I do it? It is literally what it sounds like. What is required is this. The only thing you can judge at all is judgment itself. No judgment can be part of the picture. So think about it this way. Each and everything you feel that is central to you is there for a reason. You cannot go wrong in any way. It is impossible to go wrong in the emotions column. Every single person operates the same way. You didn't choose your emotional setup. You didn't get to it through faulty wiring or thinking. You got there as an amalgamation of your nature, your experience, and all of the people who influenced you to be who you are. There is very little responsibility you bear for who you are, and everyone ends up who they are for very good reasons. As is always the case in my system, the one assumption I do make is that things make sense, and so do you. The same is true here. Your emotions column and its themes all make sense, and none of it is your responsibility with respect to how it came to be that way. Even more to the point, you don't have to feel responsible for it because nothing is even wrong. It is exactly the way it is supposed to be. But once you see this, you will have fully accepted who you are, and now you can make some adjustments that help with symptoms and let you live more fully and freely. This means you can stop considering if your themes are quote-unquote right to have, and recognize that in this zone, just by the fact that you recognize the themes to be true, means they are completely 100% valid. There is no wiggle room for judgment. Your themes are your themes. No one can comment on them in any accurate way, and they are not to be questioned. They cannot be wrong or even problematic. They just are. Remember that themes are not an assessment of what is true, but an assessment of the meaning of events and experiences in your life that find present-day mirrors for past hurts and suffering. It is impossible for them to be wrong, even a little bit. Seeing it this way, in a judgment-free zone, can allow you to get behind your feeling states as they relate to your symptoms without reservation. It allows you to have no doubt that the theme you worked on to understand yourself is indeed active at that current moment, and you do not need to waste any time or energy on your right to be fiercely in your own corner about it. It also allows you to finally have full empathy for yourself. You may have thought you did, but in my experience, full empathy for the self is a rarity without doing this kind of work. The world is a hard enough place without judging ourselves for things we cannot control, that make all the sense in the world, and aren't even wrong when you look more closely at them. To unleash the full power of the emotions column, recognize that inherently, there is never anything to judge. I really hope you enjoyed this episode on the emotions column as a judgment-free zone. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will get back to you personally.